start chapter 2. I am. I'm excited for it. This episode, we're going over chapter 2, the 5 main traits of narcissism. Megan. She thinks she's better than everyone, and we should just give her whatever she wants, when she wants it, just because she wants it. If we even think about saying no, she starts crying and making us feel awful, so we do it. It's infuriating. She sees nothing wrong with it and thinks it's her right as a parent. We used to refer to a narcissist as having either covert, hidden, or overt, exposed traits. But the thinking has moved on. I didn't know that. And we now recognize that they could have a mix of both. That complicates things. Some of the hidden narcissistic traits are so insidious that unless you know what to look for, you may not realize they are abusive. To recognize all the abusive behaviors, covert as well as overt, it helps to understand the 5 main traits of narcissism. I'm wondering if I should go sit at the table so I can prop this up. But I kinda am very comfy on this couch. There's my Sailor Moon pin and my cute little black notebook, my fanny pack, and my navy blue earphones. So the 5 main traits of narcissism: grandiosity, entitlement, exploitation, motivational empathy, and impaired self-awareness. Sorry if my forehead looks huge. In fact, there are more than 5 traits to look for when making a formal diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder, NPD. As illustrated below, the 5 main ones are shared by all narcissists, whatever their specific presentation. Hello.
He is already awake. He's back to his room.
Okay.
And, well, he just told me to call you.
Oh, he did? Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm gonna go back upstairs to Joe, and then we'll keep reading. He's out of his procedure. It was asking for me. He had his stem cells removed from his tailbone. And we'll go over that some other time if you wanna know what's happening here. We're in Mexico. Come with me upstairs. Oh. Well, hi, Joe.
Pero ya despertó el señor, ya está pidiendo desayuno.
than 165 right now. I'm like fighting weight, dude.
Our little bitty window in our room. I don't know if you can even see that.
Like, I haven't had any drinks since before midnight, so I'm like parched. Alright, last hurdle complete.
So we are back upstairs.
Ah! Oh, it's not as painless as advertised, though. I knew when they were all like, don't worry, it's totally painless, and it was gonna be more painless than that, or painful than that.
Yeah.
Ow!
It's probably similar to having like an epidural or
How long
something.
does it take the bone marrow to replenish after they draw it all out like that?
Replenish? I don't know. I don't know if it does. But you wanted me, right?
Yeah,
So why?
just because I'm open now, so we can be in the same place again.
Yeah, but I was comfy.
Oh, well, you can go back down if you want.
I don't want to go back down without you.
Well, I think breakfast is about to be served,
Okay.
so you can stay here for that at least.
Alright. I'm gonna continue what I'm doing though. So. I don't know how clear it is. But the outer circle starts with overtly grandiose, overtly exploitative, overtly entitled, deflects and dismisses criticism, impaired self-awareness, and impaired motivational empathy. So they use empathy to get what they want because they have a motive for using their empathy, or using empathy as, or probably using your empathy since they don't really have it. And then the middle circle starts with appropriately grandiose, healthy self-worth, able to ask for help and hear the word no, healthy entitlement, able to accept and process criticism, healthy self-awareness, and ability to empathize. And then the middle circle, covertly grandiose, covertly exploitative, covertly entitled, hypersensitive to criticism, impaired self-awareness, and impaired motivational empathy. The paint palette Helen proposed in her master's dissertation for understanding the difference between healthy, covert, and overt narcissism. The inner ring is covert, the outer ring is overt, and the middle ring is healthy. It is also important to bear in mind there is such a thing as healthy narcissism. The 20th century psychoanalyst Heinz Kohut described it as a driving force that makes us want more for ourselves. Our healthy entitlement, for example, is what makes us ambitious. It pushes us to want a better house or nicer things for ourselves. Our healthy grandiosity is our sense of self-worth and self-esteem, the source of our belief that we have the right to speak on things we know about or specialize in, just as we are writing this book with a healthy understanding that we have the authority to do so based on our work and research and education. The main difference between healthy and unhealthy narcissism is very simply its cost to others. In other words, unhealthy narcissism involves the exploitation of someone else to meet its needs, and the cost to that person can be anything. Emotional pain, physical pain, money, and assets are all prices paid by the exploited person for the narcissist's gain, as well as getting its needs met regardless of the impact on others. Unhealthy narcissism believes in the right to something just because it wants it. It also believes in its own authoritative opinion, no matter where that opinion came from. It could be Wikipedia or a news article. Narcissists have little concern for the foundation for their beliefs because they are so convinced of their superiority. Now we're going over grandiosity. Grandiosity is the unjustified sense of superiority the narcissist has over everyone else in the world. It's their world and we live in it to serve them. It is a groundless sense of superiority that leads to devaluing others seen as competition. Oh, I used to have a car like that, but I didn't like it, so I took it back. Who did they think they are driving around in that ridiculous car? You got a promotion? Goodness, I don't suppose many people would apply for it, would they? Well done, though. I don't know why you're making such a fuss about this baby. I just got on with it. I wouldn't want a house that big. It's not my style. According to the Diagnostic Interview for Narcissism, someone who exhibits grandiosity exaggerates talents, capacity, and achievements in an unrealistic way, believes in their invulnerability or does not recognize their limitations, has grandiose fantasies, believes they do not need other people, overexamines and downgrades other people's projects, statements, or dreams in an unrealistic manner, regards themselves as unique or special when compared to other people, sees themselves as generally superior to other people, behaves self-centeredly and or self-referentially, behaves in a boastful or pretentious way. And they listed a source, the Grandiosity section of the Diagnostic Interview for Narcissism, DIN, 2nd edition, Gunderson J., Roningstam E., Bodkin A., the Diagnostic Interview for Narcissistic Patients, Archives of General Psychiatry, 47, 676 through 680. 1990. Rebecca's mother threw an annual summer party. In the months leading up to the event, she forced her children to help with the organizing, telling them repeatedly how important the party was and impressing on them that the consequences of it not going well would be dire. As a result, the children believed it was the social event of the year. She built it up in their minds so much that it seemed more like a garden party at Buckingham Palace than some warm white wine in the back garden. She also made them wear outfits she had chosen especially, and serve drinks and canapes, and make small talk with the guests who were 3 times their own age. The children weren't allowed to leave before the last guest, nor were they allowed to eat anything, in case there wasn't enough for the visitors. And since this was not an occasion for their enjoyment, they were to behave with composure throughout to make a good impression and not be an embarrassment to their mother. Rebecca's mother was displaying her grandiosity and assuming that her summer party was as important to everyone else as it was to her, and in using her children to demonstrate what a wonderful mother she was. With grandiosity, we might also see someone who looks down on others, who thinks they're better than everyone else, and grossly exaggerates their accomplishments to give credence to their authority. Grandiosity is an intrapersonal trait. Second. Which means it exists within the mind and doesn't need interactions with others. In other words, if the narcissist was on a desert island alone, this trait would still be evident. Grandiosity is the central trait that is fed by all other narcissistic traits, whether the narcissist overtly exhibits it or not. Their misconceived sense of superiority is sometimes referred to as magical thinking. The narcissist will centralize themselves in other people's worlds, making themselves seem more important and convincing others that they depend on them. Both overt and covert presentations will look to exaggerate abilities and experiences. They're a horse rider when they've had one lesson. They speak fluent French when they can barely manage oh boy. It looks like oui est la plage. Oui est la plage. And their fantasies, whether overtly or covertly expressed, will be grandiose, about wealth, power, influence, and ability. The overt presentation we call the big I am, or a black catter. A black catter is someone who brags about what they've done, what they've got, who they know. And if you've got a black cat, they've got one, but it's blacker than yours. They have a story to beat yours every time. They know more than you about any subject. They're the life and soul of the party, holding court and largely talking about themselves. A narcissist exhibiting overt grandiosity asserts dominance and peacocks to others to show how much better than them they are. They have the best car, the best house, partner, job, kids. Apart from one, obviously, the scapegoat, of which more later. But their flaws are blamed on the other parent or another spurious thing. The best everything. And if they don't, and this is undeniable, they will say, for example, "Oh, I wouldn't want a house that big. It's not my style." Overt grandiosity is typically associated with the wealth and success achieved by the narcissist, and where there isn't much wealth or success to talk about, there will be stories about lost opportunities, sabotaged by someone or some kind of extenuating circumstances, and they will be the victim. When grandiosity presents covertly, it's much harder to spot. Instead of making flashy or boastful claims or exaggerating achievements, they respond by devaluing and criticizing those they perceive to have more than them, or who threaten or challenge their superiority. Who do they think they are driving around in that ridiculous car? Well, yes, they may have got that promotion, but I wonder what they did to get it, implying that it wasn't gained on merit alone. The covert presentation doesn't look obvious from the outside, but it's very much there. It manifests as a quiet but scathing judgment of others, often passive-aggressively, so the comments aren't easily identifiable. Grandiosity is also behind the concrete opinions of someone with NPD. Jack's father was a big supporter of a particular political party. He believed anyone who voted differently was idiotic, wasting their vote, and didn't understand politics. He believed his opinion was the only one that mattered. If others or his children put forth a different one or questioned his assertions in any way, there was something wrong with them. They were slow to understand, uneducated, ridiculous even. Little can be said or done to challenge their superiority, and woe betide anyone who tries, because it is this that provokes the narcissistic rage or smear campaign. I don't think they should be using politics to describe things in this book. Politics are very, very black and white. In 2008, Atlas and Them explained how people with NPD responded to those who challenged them or threatened their self-esteem. They did this by staging a critique of the narcissists, presenting skills using a stooge they had placed in the experiment. After presenting, the narcissist was given constructive criticism with clear guidance on how to improve their skills. However, they were unable to hear the criticism and instead devalued and degraded the person critiquing. The study showed that they saw feedback as a personal attack against which they had to defend themselves, which they did by discrediting the person giving it. When someone doesn't meet the expectations of a narcissist, they may be met with something known as narcissistic rage, an emotional response to the disappointment from someone not meeting their demands. Grandiosity sets high expectations, and these will never be met no matter what. In a covert presentation, the narcissist will look to others to validate their superiority, but regardless of how much validation is offered, it will never be enough. The overt presentation will openly dismiss and devalue anyone who is critical or challenges their unrealistic self-perception. Jane's mother had narcissistic traits that were more often covert than overt. Jane dreaded occasions like Christmas, Mother's Day, and her mother's birthday, because whatever she got from her mom, it just wasn't enough. She would buy expensive gifts, make reservations at coveted restaurants, and take her mother on nice vacations, but all in vain. Her mother would still find something to complain about, express disappointment, or compare it to something her neighbor had and find it wanting. Jane could serve her mother the moon on a plate, and her mother would complain about the dust or ask why she hadn't got the sun. There was nothing Jane could give
deeper than that.
buy or do that would meet her mother's
yeah, well,
need
that's the one
for
that they use to
evidence
talk
that
about.
she was better than everyone else.
Yeah, I know.
If Jane was to challenge that behavior, her mother would act hurt and sad in response and likely accuse her of making it all up.
Yeah.
Well, usually that's
Jack's
what it
father
takes.
had
The
more overt
dosaging,
traits.
that's
When his
only what it
father
takes, like
got a new
half an
phone,
hour.
he showed it off to Jack,
Thirty-five.
bragging. When Jack said, "Oh yeah, that's the one I used to have. I've got the newer model now." His father
did give you a
said,
little bit more this time because
"I didn't want that one. The battery life isn't as
yeah,
good.
and
What's the
actually,
point of having that one when
they
it
try to do
runs
the-
out
the-
all the time? Enjoy
try
charging
first,
it every
the
5
first,
minutes." Jack's
the
father's
bone
sense of
marrow,
superiority was challenged by his
we
son
know
having
that you
a
got like
later,
100%
better model
like
than him.
sleep, because
So
when-
he had to
when
devalue
they did
to
press
feel less
you a little
threatened.
bit your leg,
Jack
that one
knew,
had to
based
wait
on
a little bit
experience,
longer,
that
maybe
if he
more,
then
and
questioned his
see.
father's
That's why
reasoning,
maybe take a
he
little
would
bit
try
longer
again to
sometimes recover
dominate
from that.
and probably
Yeah.
explode with rage,
Because
telling
they had
Jack,
to
as
use
he
a
always
little bit
did,
more than usual.
that he had no
Okay.
idea what he
Okay.
was talking about.
All worked out.
I'll just give you an anti-inflammatory and pain medication.
Whenever Jane
That'll
cooked,
work.
people loved her food. But her husband Tom,
You're
who
welcome.
liked to think he was a better cook, but wasn't, constantly criticized it. Every time someone complimented Jane's food, he would either suggest how it could be improved or try to take ownership by saying he gave her the recipe or taught her how to do the technique she used. Tom presented more overtly than covertly, so he thought nothing of criticizing Jane's cooking in front of their friends. And if Jane challenged this in any way, for example, contradicting the recipe source or suggesting there was something wrong with her partner's taste buds, he may not have said anything there and then, but would likely let her know that he was annoyed with her with some private indication, and later get angry with her for trying to humiliate him in front of their friends. The challenge would be dealt with privately because Tom had enough self-awareness to know that others would react badly to it, completely ignoring, of course, that he had done exactly that to Jane in the first place. He might then have ignored her, stonewalling for a couple of days, despite her attempts to make peace. Despite overt and covert narcissists reacting differently to any challenge to superiority, the outcome is the same. The narcissist establishes their superiority and asserts dominance, at the same time creating a shame response in their victim should they attempt to be seen as equal in their relationship. The grandiosity trait is also the narcissist's biggest weakness. In their unwavering self-belief, they think no one can get the better of them, and this leads to them underestimating their victims. They can't imagine them outsmarting or leaving them, or just generally winning against them. So when someone is trying to survive the narcissist, realizing this weakness in them is their biggest asset. They rarely see their victim planning to escape or to hold them accountable, gathering evidence of their behavior because they believe they're not capable of it. And now we're going over entitlement. So this is the second one. Entitlement is closely interwoven with exploitation below. It is the belief that whatever the narcissist wants, they should have it because they are better than everyone else, and everyone should recognize it, regardless of the cost to anyone else. Of course, you should have told me first. I'm your mother. After all I've done for you, I can't believe you would say no to me like that. How dare you? I've got some names here to add to your guest list for the wedding. I know you don't know them, but they're my friends, so they have to be invited. If they want a promotion, they will do everything they can to get it, except earn it the way they should. Entitlement reinforces the sense of superiority we discussed in grandiosity by saying, well, I must be better than everyone else because look at what other people gave me just because I wanted it. Entitlement centralizes the narcissist in everyone else's world. They constantly look to make others meet their needs above and beyond their own. And they have no regard for others' needs because in their worldview, those people are there exclusively to meet the narcissist's needs. Rebecca's mother demanded that she take her shopping, but Rebecca was working, so she couldn't. Never mind the fact she didn't want to. Her mother would either act mortally wounded, covert presentation, weaponizing the victim's space to make her feel guilty, or furiously angry, overt presentation, using anger to make Rebecca comply through fear. Essentially, Rebecca's mother was demanding that Rebecca drop everything immediately and meet whatever need her mother had, regardless of what she was doing. There is nothing the narcissist doesn't feel entitled to. It could be money, time, food, energy, sex, company, emotional labor, even an opinion. If they want it, they will take it or manipulate someone into giving it to them. Megan's mother thought nothing of taking money from her children. She demanded they give her 20% of their income when they started working. Now, it's one thing to ask your children over a certain age to contribute financially to the household, but Megan's mother took money from her children when they were 12 years old. She took their birthday money, and even after they moved out, she used motivational empathy to get her children to give her money too. There was a lot going on here in Megan's mother's behavior, including the parentification aspect, which we will come to in Chapter 6. But in short, she was making her children financially responsible for the household, while at the same time sabotaging their attempts to gain independence. She felt an entitled sense of ownership to of her children. So, the narcissistic parent's entitlement shows up as ownership, possession, authority over their children's lives and what they do or don't do. So, Jack worked in media law, and the type of job that meant he brushed shoulders with some important people whom his father admired. His father regularly turned up at his son's workplace when he knew those people would be there and would introduce himself to them, acting as though he had known them all his life, and generally dominating conversations. It made everyone very uncomfortable, particularly Jack. Jack had been warned at work that it wasn't to happen again, that he would be in the firing line if his father turned up again. But his father brushed his concerns aside, claiming he was doing no harm and that the important people liked him. Jack's father felt entitled to what his son had, including his acquaintances, so much so that he was willing to jeopardize Jack's job. He would ask when the influential people would next be coming in, and if Jack said he'd rather not say, he'd respond by laughing, saying things like, "What's the big deal? I'm just wondering." And eventually he'd resort to, "Who do you think you are? You think you're so important, don't you? As if anyone cares." Jack's father would belittle, mock, humiliate, and devalue his son because he was so angry that he wouldn't give him what he felt entitled to. Access to the people he thought worth his time. As with grandiosity, entitlement will show up differently, depending on whether it is overt or covert. When it's overt, it will be obvious. It will be someone turning up uninvited to a party and muscling in, or someone demanding an upgrade to first class on an airplane, arguing loudly about how often they fly, talking down to the staff when they are denied. It's as though the rules don't apply to them, and they can do and take anything they want. It'll be passing off someone else's work as their own, and placing themselves in positions of power they have no right to be in, just because they want to. It might even be the partner who cheats on their spouse because the partner said no to sex, or booking themselves a week away with their friends without discussing childcare responsibilities. Ultimately, it's just taking or demanding what they want and expecting to get it, regardless of the cost to anyone else. And it's easily seen. Less easy to see, as ever, is the covert presentation. For example, I wish I was going to the party you're going to, but I was forgotten. When it's covert, entitlement relies heavily on motivational empathy. See page 41, which we're almost to get the need met, and we see a lot of weaponizing of the victim space. The narcissist is unable to meet their own need, so they'll make someone feel sorry for them to get what they want, which is very manipulative. Well, we're going over exploitation, then motivational empathy, and then it's the end of chapter 2. A few more pages. Okay, go ahead. Not that you need my permission. Did they say that you can eat?
The breakfast is here, so I assume it'll be.
Well, you had anesthesia. I would ask to be sure. You don't want to get nauseous or throw up. So, exploitation. Taking resources belonging to others regardless of the cost. Of course I kept her birthday money. I need to pay bills. Exploiting money. Why can't you take me to the shops? It's not like you've got anything better to do. Exploiting time. I want you to send your husband round. I've got some shelves that need putting up. Exploiting skills, relationship, time, energy. Exploitation is heavily intertwined with entitlement. But essentially, it's using others for self-gain, whether financial assets, social status, skills, emotional support, just about anything. Even a tragedy can be exploited. Say using a death either to get close to someone or get sympathy, and therefore attention, and whatever else they're looking to gain emotionally, financially, or otherwise. There are extreme cases of children being exploited by narcissistic parents, but typically it exists insidiously on a much smaller scale. It could be exploiting children for their time or skill, for example. Rebecca was known as the techie one. Her mother would constantly demand that she drop everything and help fix her phone or computer or give her instructions on how to use an app. When Rebecca started to understand this, she would suggest her mother look it up on YouTube or Google, which was met with a response intended to shame and punish Rebecca. Oh, never mind. If you haven't got time to show your own mother, I'll just go without it. I'll just go without. In this instance, Rebecca's mother was exploiting her daughter's skill, not only to get the thing fixed, but also to pull her into rescuing her. She was using motivational empathy. See page 41. Next page. To make her daughter feel obliged to help, asserting control through fear, obligation, and guilt, exploiting her to meet a number of needs, fixing her phone, reassuring her that she was the most important thing in Rebecca's life, and creating an opportunity to remind her daughter that she was responsible for how her mother felt. Very, very codependent. When Jane lost her first baby, her mother told all her friends, and every year posted a status on Facebook about the baby, using the situation to elicit sympathy. She talked about the pain of never meeting her grandchild, but rarely mentioned her daughter in the conversation. Jane repeatedly asked her to stop doing this, but her mother always snapped back with, "It happened to me, too. I lost my grandchild, too." Jane's mother exploited her daughter's tragedy and made it her own, regardless of how much this hurts Jane. The point is, exploitation doesn't have to be enacted on a grand scale to have an impact. It's the intent that's important, using others to meet a need of some kind, regardless of the cost to the victim. It's insidious, but it's also where we can start challenging our own responses to the narcissist. We can follow Rebecca's lead and start to say no, face our feelings of fear, obligation, and guilt, and remember that the only people who get angry with our no are the people who would benefit from our yes. And now we're on to motivational empathy. Weaponizing somebody's empathy against them to either avoid accountability or force them to do something against their will. We might call it guilt tripping or pulling on heartstrings. I know, I'm just the worst person in the world. You're so much better than me. Gosh, this is such a lovely coat. I would really love it for the winter, but it's just too far out of my budget. You don't need to keep going on about it. I feel bad enough already. I was never good enough for you. This just shows it. It's often thought that narcissists don't have empathy, but they do. It's just very different from healthy empathy. Empathy is a fairly complex subject, but essentially there are three main types: cognitive empathy, relative empathy, and motivational empathy. Cognitive empathy is the ability to understand or predict how someone may feel or react in a given set of circumstances. This is the type autistic people have difficulty with. It's a misconception that people with autism simply lack empathy, whereas they struggle with cognitive empathy. They have tons of relative empathy, which is feeling the same feeling as someone else. Autistic people have a tendency to experience relative empathy in overdrive, which is partly why they feel so overwhelmed by large groups of people. Motivational empathy is where our empathy makes us take action. It is used all the time and is all around us. For example, charities use it in their promotional material to encourage donations, showing an image of a starving or neglected child, say, appeals to our empathy and motivates us to take action. Motivational empathy pulls on our fear, obligation, and guilt, demanding we meet someone else's need, usually above our own, which is fine if we have a choice and we are allowed to say no. In the hands of a narcissist, however, motivational empathy becomes a weapon. They'll use it to manipulate, to get their own needs met. They will use someone's empathy against them. They will also use motivational empathy to deflect responsibility. If Jane tried to explain to her husband that something he had done or said made her feel bad, he typically reacted with, I know, I'm just the worst person in the world. You can do so much better than me." This made Jane feel bad for him, and instead of receiving the emotional support she sought, or Tom taking responsibility, she ended up reassuring him that he wasn't terrible and she loved him. So having heard that he'd hurt her, he used motivational empathy by weaponizing her empathy for him against her, to make her feel guilty and obliged to assure him he was a good person. Rebecca's mother used motivational empathy to solicit money from her adult children on the family chat group. Her mother would send messages such as, I just got my electricity bill. I guess it's beans and candles? I guess it's beans and candles for me, haha. The children then fought over who would pay the bill. Not only did they feel it was their responsibility, they also saw paying their mother's bill as a chance to be the golden child for a while. I wonder if that has anything to do with my brothers fighting over to pay for the meal. Could you maybe try to eat a little quieter? Thank you. You're just like banging the stuff in it. It's hard for me to concentrate and hurts my, everything. A narcissist uses motivational empathy with their child from day one when they say, if you don't do that, mommy and daddy will be sad. They are asking the child to ignore their own feelings to make the parent feel better. They are also telling their child that they have power over how their parent feels, so that the child assumes a sense of responsibility for their parent's feelings, and understanding that seeps into all of their future relationships. They feel as though they have unlimited power over everyone's feelings, and as a result, they need to avoid doing or saying anything to upset people. And if they do, they must fix it. They don't recognize that A, holding someone responsible for behaving badly is not mean, and B, unless we are deliberately hurting or shaming someone, we are not responsible for how they feel. For example, if Rebecca said to her friend, I didn't like it when you laughed at my outfit the other night, she wasn't shaming her friend, she was sharing how her friend hurt her through her behavior, and without being mean or rude, she was just holding her friend accountable. But if Rebecca said to her friend, ugh, you're so annoying, you never stop going on about trains, it's so boring, she was shaming her friend and belittling her. If she wanted her friend to stop continuously talking about trains, she could say, I love that you love trains, but they're not really my thing. Could we talk about something different, please? And then change the subject. If her friend kept talking about trains, then it would be up to Rebecca to decide whether or not she wanted to be in that relationship. She didn't need to shame or belittle the friend because she didn't like the topic of conversation. To reinforce their child's sense of obligation to prioritize their parents' feelings, the narcissistic parent uses emotional abandonment, commonly referred to as stonewalling. Stonewalling is the primary way the narcissistic parent weaponizes their child's fear, obligation, and guilt against them, which is what motivational empathy works on. Fear that they won't be loved or will be rejected, punished, shamed, humiliated. Obligation to meet the demands of the narcissist for fear of feeling all those fears and guilt that they have negatively impacted their parent through not meeting their demand. So their empathy is used to motivate them to meet the parent's demands, weaponized against them. I.e. weaponized against them. What does I.E. stand for? Anyways, Rebecca described running up to her mother with a picture she had drawn for her when she was around 5 years old. She was so excited to show Mommy, bursting with pride and joy, fizzing with energy. Imagine how she felt when her mother said, "Do stop going on, Rebecca. It's only a picture. You've done them 1,000 times." Rebecca was confused at first and then embarrassed. She felt the sting of rejection flush her cheeks and tears prick her eyes. Her mother's only response was to roll her eyes and call Rebecca a drama queen. Rebecca never gave her a drawing again. Megan recalled going to see her aunt and having a lovely time. She returned home to her mother and cheerfully said, "Hi, Mom," only to be met with a stony silence. Megan had no idea what she had done wrong, and the silence lasted for days. Her mother barely said a word to her, just left Megan feeling confused and off balance over whatever mistake she had made. She replayed the events of the previous few days in her head and realized her mother was angry that she had spent time with her aunt, because her mother considered Megan to be hers, and if Megan had other relationships separate from her mother, it was seen as a huge betrayal. The fear that emotional abandonment generates in children is so intense that they will do whatever it takes to avoid it. In this case, prioritizing their parents' feelings and ignoring their own. That fear then drives the obligation and guilt they feel in adulthood when saying no in all their relationships. It becomes their relational pattern, dictating their behavior, based on the understanding that saying no to someone will lead to abandonment. Motivational empathy is one of the most important concepts to understand when we are trying to heal from the impact of narcissism. Once we recognize that empathy is weaponized against us to silence and manipulate us into meeting a narcissist's needs and used by them to avoid taking responsibility for behavior, we can understand what is happening. Learn not to enable it and speak up for ourselves. Impaired self-awareness and inability to self-reflect. Impaired self-awareness and inability to self-reflect and understand how their behavior impacts others. And it's not my fault you feel that way. I don't know why they've cut me off. They had a perfect childhood. If you've got a problem with me, that's your problem, not mine. It's often assumed that narcissists have no self-awareness, but this is not the case.
So I didn't feel that poke at all, by the way. So
What they have is impaired self-awareness. This means that they have enough to modify their behavior, but not enough to heal or change it. If a narcissist sees they've done something to upset you, they know they have a range of behaviors to distract you from challenging them or holding them accountable. They might use motivational empathy to make you feel bad. I know, I'm terrible, I just get it wrong all the time. Or superiority to gaslight you. Oh, for gosh sake, why do you always have to ruin everything with your moods? It's so petty and pathetic. But the narcissist lacks sufficient awareness to be able to self-reflect and recognize how their behavior is problematic. Instead, they use self-awareness to manipulate and control. But doesn't that suggest that there is an intent behind their behavior? Yes, it does. And this is about the abuse that they've inflicted. The fact that on some level they understand what they are doing and why. Impaired self-awareness is the overt presentation. Impaired self-awareness in the overt presentation is documented as an acceptance of behavior, but externalizing the blame. For example, when Jack once confronted his father and told him he was a narcissist, the response was, "So, it's got me to where I am today. What's the problem? If you've got a problem, that's yours, not mine. I'm perfectly fine." Jack's father was aware that he had narcissistic behaviors, but didn't care and was even somewhat grateful for it. On the other hand, if Jane was to suggest to her mother that she was a narcissist, with her tendency toward the covert presentation, her mother would likely be terribly wounded and hurt by the suggestion, deny all accountability, and say she tried to help everyone, that she was a good person, and ask how Jane could say such a thing. She would sit back into the victim space, horrified that anyone could suggest she was anything other than a model of a human. And confronted with evidence, she might explain it away, blaming stress or others' behavior. "Nothing I do is ever good enough. I've dedicated my life to raising you, and this is how you treat me. Nobody else thinks like that. It's always you. You need help." My God, it's like my mother wrote this.
I wasn't going to say anything, but...
That's my husband. In the background that you heard. What Jane's mother would not do is stop and think about what she did that made her daughter believe she was a narcissist. And that's the difference. Where Jack's father might have accepted he was a narcissist, he was not going to reflect on it and how his behavior hurt others. In fact, he would revel in it, thinking it was a positive thing, and Jane's mother would be horrified by the accusation. But again, instead of reflecting, she'd cast blame and devalue Jane in her response. Self-awareness in narcissism is like a shallow puddle, deep enough for the narcissist to understand how to use behaviors to control, dominate, and deflect, but not enough to understand how their behaviors could severely wound those around them. Conversely, in an emotionally healthy person, self-awareness would be more like a lake, with depth enough for exploration. Yeah, here I am sitting here feeling sad for betta fish, thinking of them in those little cups in the stores and those little bowls and little tiny tanks people buy because the people in the pet store act like they know what they're talking about, but have literally no idea how to actually care for the fish. They are there to sell them, and that's it.
Hi, Kayla.
Hi.
How are you today?
I'm good.
Good. I
No.
have a survey here. When you have time, if you
Mhm.
can fill this for us.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna leave it right there. Around 2, we're gonna take Darlene to the store. It's like a souvenir store.
Oh, really?
If you'd like to come with us, you're welcome.
I would love to.
Okay, fine. It's gonna be around 2 after lunch.
Okay. Are our husbands allowed to come?
I don't want to go. You go
I
have a good time.
know, but I can ask if I want.
Well, I need to see the schedule.
Okay,
Because,
that's
you know, all
fine.
the treatments
Yeah,
and
all
all
the
that.
treatments and everything. I had to ask because
Mhm.
I don't like
And
when
of course, if he wants to go. Okay.
he never wants to leave the dark room, the dark, comfy room.
We'll be down in the lounge tonight throwing a hockey party.
Okay, with who?
All the doctors and nurses who want to learn about hockey.
Did they say they would come?
Well, they might. Who knows? I told Daniel about it, so
Okay, that sounds fun. But when does
Yeah.
that start?
6:30,
Okay.
I think.
Okay.
Well, I'm gonna be downstairs.
All right.
Are you gonna
Thank
come to my
you.
party?
See you.
He wants you to
At
come.
that time, I'm gonna be at my house.
Aw.
Thanks.
That doesn't count as work if you're having a party.
Oh, that's an interesting pictures here.
You're the only one who's noticed them so far. And Joe's is on the left there where it says Big Mike Wazowski.
Yeah, her Mike Wazowski is much better than mine.
Yeah, it's like the monster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. You did it, Kayla?
Yeah, I did the ones on the right and in the middle.
That's funny.
The man at the top, that's supposed to be Snoop Dogg. I just looked up a random picture of him and tried to draw it.
Okay. Well, we have some papers and colors and downstairs where the books are. If you would like to draw something or do something there.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I will see you later then.
Alrighty. Narcissistic personality disorder, NPD, is about front and center positioning, being the most important person there is, not only in the narcissist's own eyes, but in everyone else's too. This is why narcissistic parents are so damaging. They leave no room for anyone else unless they are propping up the narcissist and meeting their expectations, needs, and demands, And should the narcissist child try to step away and into their own autonomy, they will be met with shame, humiliation, punishment, rejection, and abandonment. And that was chapter 2. Wow. I knew it was going to be good. I was so excited for it, and it was really good. The next one, chapter 3, is called What Made Them a Narcissist, and that is what we will be going over next time. Join me to read that one too, because I know it's going to be just as good as the last two. And the, what is it called? The prelude? Oh, the introduction. So yeah, I'm excited. I don't know when we'll do that. Maybe tonight if Joe's busy or something.
Well, I'll definitely be watching hockey.
He'll be watching hockey, so yeah.